what part of the game should be the most important? Why did you decide to do early access?
That's a great question.
What advice would you have to someone getting started in game development who doesn't think they can do it? Total sales number for Backpack Battles.
Sales currently sit at about 800,000.
I'm super excited to be talking with the developers from PlayWithFurcifer, Dorothea and Mario. And you probably know them already because they have already a big channel on YouTube. They're also the developers of Backpack Battles. First off, introduce yourselves and a little bit about your background in game development.
I'm Dorothea. I'm the artist in our studio, so I do all the art. And we program together. Actually, we both have a master's degree in computer science. No, actually, Mario has a PhD.
Hey, you can see the hat here on top.
Exactly, he just finished it. And so yeah, that's our background. Mario also does the writing and game design. And I mostly do like creating videos and marketing. And yeah, we complement each other and kind of...
Most things involve both of us because we live together and it's just very easy to ask back or read something. So everything I write, Dorothea has read, and every social media post I have seen, and every art piece I have given my opinion on, and usually cheered her on.
Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. There's a piece of both of us in every part of the game.
Well, I like that a lot. That's really cool. Piece of both of you in every part of the game. So the game that you're working on currently is Backpack Battles. We'll give a quick description of what that is and how you guys got started making that game, because it's not your first game.
Yeah, that's right. It's technically our third or fourth game. It's the second game we are about to finish. Backpack Battles is a asynchronous PvP auto battler, which means it is a game where you do your part of forging a build. In that case, it's an inventory management game. So you arrange an inventory very carefully and buy items, put them in places where they synergize, and then you press go and fight another player. And because you don't have any inputs to make and they don't have any inputs to make, it's just fine if they are not here at the same time. So they played their round in the past against someone else, and you now play against them. And your build later will be matched by other players. And because it's so nice to be able to have a PvP experience, but without the necessary timers and the pressure that usually comes with that, I think it's a really cool thing.
And you're in early access currently, right?
We are in early access currently and plan to switch to full release in
early 2025.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, not so far away. You have kind of a cool story about your demo and how that came to be. Like, when did you start development on Backpack Battles?
I think that was like in 2023 in March, and 2 months later we already had a prototype that we sent to some friends, and they really got into it. And then we put it on itch.io, and then we put it on Steam, and then it slowly gained some traction over last year. By the end of the year, we already had like 300,000 wishlists.
So 2 months of development for the demo.
For the first demo.
Of course, compared to now, it's a really rough state with not a lot of items. You can imagine it's a bare bones version of the game, but basically all the major pieces were in place. Like, we added the ability to fuse items a week earlier. So that was there. And like, there are 2 or 3 recipes we scrambled together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We were like, we have a shield. We have this thorn.
We had a spike shield.
No, yeah.
You already drew a spike shield. And we were just like, we have a shield, we have a spike. And no, we could have this idea for recipes. Yeah. We could fuse them together and make a spike shield. And the buckler and the spike shield look a little bit different because these were separate items
But it's okay.
in early development.
It's fine.
But nobody noticed, of course.
Yeah. With this game, it was really like everything clicked into place. Like all the ideas came to us, and we added them, and it was magic, kind of. It just felt
weird
right.
how many ideas just worked out.
Well, it's really brilliant because you're opening up. It's almost like a casual multiplayer.
Yeah, it's so relaxed.
And I think the thing that popped out at me when because I shared this too, was the artwork.
Yeah.
And that's you, Dorothea, right?
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about kind of your process for that?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm not actually like a professional artist, but I guess
I mean, technically you are now.
I am at this point, but it's not my background. So the first time I did digital art was on Killboy, and before that it was only pixel art. So that's actually what I felt comfortable with. But then we kind of thought like pixel art for these items, it just didn't feel quite right, and also pixel art takes ages to make. So,
yeah, we also noted that Dorothea is very good at watercolor. She did a lot of great watercolor art.
No. Yep.
It's amazing. We thought like maybe we can get some use out of that.
How long does that process take for you to create these different items or characters?
Let me think. I think an item takes between 1 and like 3 hours, I think.
Depending on the size mostly.
Exactly.
And the level of detail.
Level of detail, yeah.
Is it digital or are you doing it?
No, it is digital, but like with different brushes that like imitate this traditional.
So what was that like? You had that demo like 2 months after you started working, which is kind of insane to have it that quick
But
of a
we were
turnaround.
so excited about it. I don't know how it got traction. I think we promoted it over our channel.
Yeah, but for the first weeks it was kind of nice. We were kind of happy. Like it went better than the first weeks of Furcifer or Killboy.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that impactful. And we had a Chinese localization quite early.
I think it was around a year ago, maybe over a year.
Yeah, so the game started to gain some traction, I think, in Japan and China. We have worked with our Chinese publisher IndieArc. We knew them from Furcifer and just pitched the project in this early state to them, and they started publishing that really early. So we got some traction in China. I'm not sure if we had the localization at that point.
Now you said IndieArc, that's your publisher. Maybe so for people who might not be familiar, maybe you're new to game development in general, or the sort of commercial business side of game development. What is the publisher for you guys?
Publishers typically do localization marketing, funding if you need that, and some other things. It really depends a bit on the specific publisher and what you need.
Yeah.
And IndieArc is a publisher specialized for Asia and the Asian market, which is quite hard to get a grasp of if you don't have a contact. So there are lots of regulations that make it difficult to publish to China. It's just culturally and from the language side very difficult to manage. It makes sense to use a specialized publisher for the Asian regions. Publishers usually take a revenue share, and our thought process was this is a revenue share for regions we usually would get basically nothing out of. So every money is a win in our everything. Yeah. So sharing some revenue wasn't a issue at all.
You're sharing revenue in a market that you weren't necessarily going to get without that.
Exactly, and like we did co-publishing with them basically through the whole early access phase until maybe a few months ago. And now they are our global publisher because, they did a really good job.
Now for the marketing part, because you said you're both acting as publishers. And if you look on the Steam page, it has you guys and it has IndieArc. Did they help with the marketing aspect, the sharing of, connecting with media, that type of thing?
Sure.
Or was that solely you guys?
So the first big push was was Japan, and the next even bigger push was China, which is something that we basically have to create our publisher for. Like without the localization and we wouldn't even know who to contact. So you can, of course, like go to Bilibili and look for content creators there, but I'm not sure how effective we would have been in that. So
that's great, I think, yeah.
So you can try, but crafting a mail and finding the right people to message isn't easy for English-speaking creators.
Also, they manage the community. Like they have different messengers or social networks than we have, like WeChat and QQ.
So like generally, I think at least getting a publisher for Asia is just a really good idea in many cases.
Yeah. For someone who might be watching, let's say they've made a game and they put it on itch.io. At what point would you advise, based on your experience, that someone look for or think about a publisher?
Yeah, it really depends. That's the boring answer.
Publishers usually want to see like a playable demo. They want to see some concepts. The later the better for the publisher, but the earlier the better for you, especially if you want the funding.
Exactly. It depends a lot on if you need funding. And we were in the position that we didn't need funding because we were working at the time.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of juicy for publishers because they don't have any risk with you. And that makes pitching so much easier.
So you guys were working at the same time as developing Backpack Battles. How did that sort of life work?
Well, I was actually
2.0 workout
full time already. Like
right
in
before
2023, I went full time, and so that gave me a lot of time to work. But Mario was still working, and the year before it was while we were working on First of Us Function, it was also really stressful.
Yeah, we basically went from both working full-time to Dorothea going part-time, me going part-time, then her going full-time game development. And my work with the university ended
4 days ago?
Check 4 days ago, I still was working 50% until now.
A lot of people are having that struggle of finding that time, right? Because it takes a lot of time to make a game. Even if you've got 2 people or even a publisher to help out with some aspects, to have that time. So how did you find that time when you had other things? Was it like stealing an hour here or there, or blocking out a certain amount of time?
As a preface, the whole idea is immensely stressful. The idea of working full-time or part-time and making a game is just something. So our stress level was higher than you could sustain forever. And we were very aware of that working at some point full-time or part-time and making a game on the side is not something we do for 10 years. So that's something we decided to try for a few years to establish us to then go full-time. The hours are taken from weekends and
evenings.
Mm-hmm. So
are you still actively developing Backpack Battles then?
Yeah, all the time. So we are still in early access. So the game is not done in the sense. We have a lot of features we are working on and are working on very intensely.
Could you talk a little bit about, because I think, the old way of doing this, when we all had floppy disks and you had to go to a store to buy a game, you had a game, you made the game, you finished the game, and then you released the game. But you guys had a demo that you did, and you're still in early access.
The demo came out in May 2023, and then we, for some reason, decided to patch it every week. Like every Sunday, we added content, some new items and stuff. And in March of this year, 2024, we released into early access, and so we're now in early access for like a half a year.
maybe talk about what that the decision to sort of develop in the open, I guess, in a way, versus having a closed alpha, a closed beta, and then releasing a 1.0. Why did you decide to do early access?
Yeah, so that's a great question that will have a kind of long answer. I think it's really interesting. So because that's an unusual approach, right? That's not how you typically see games being made even nowadays. And we tried the same approach or similar approach with Furcifer and just decided to throw out a demo early and iterate on that and get feedback early, get some wish lists coming in early, because we thought, getting a demo out is a piece of surface area, is how I like to formulate it. So a way to find the game. It's a piece on the internet where you can hook people from. And we have surface area on our YouTube channel, but we also have it on itch.den and on Steam. And we actually decided to put out all our demos on web game sites. So what came after the Flash game sites. And even Newgrounds is still active, and you can put your games on Newgrounds. And that's something that people should do more. Crazy Games, they sponsored us a while ago and actually have more traffic and are really nice. So you can put your game on there and have that as a free advertising, even just a demo, and even get a little bit of money from that, which is what we did for Killboy and Furcifer, and it went quite well. But the incredibly scary part is that you have to show unfinished games, which is just existentially terrifying.
Do you feel like do you feel vulnerable when you do that? Like if you put something out and people are like, I don't know about that part. I don't know about that design.
Yeah, of course.
Still nervous with every patch we do. I'm really, really nervous, and I'm like, hopefully there's no bugs, but so always like
I think you have to be quite secure in your approach to consider this. And I think we are, because otherwise we just would have had several breakdowns at this point.
I mean, it sounds like you've gone through this process a couple of times with Furcifer's Fungin and with Killboy.
Yeah.
And you've sort of iterated on this process.
Yeah, exactly.
How to release, how to get feedback.
So it's a style basically that we tried to find for ourselves, and logically it makes a lot of sense. And we were like, okay, this is an approach that has a lot of advantages. Presenting your game early, getting early feedback, having surface area early, hooking players. But we were like, okay, it's so good on paper. We have to do it, even if it's so scary. And that's why we did it. It's like a piece of performance art. So developing a game is not the one final product. The whole way to the final product is the performance art piece, with the YouTube devlogs we do about them, and every patch and every part of the demo is like this, almost want to say, journey we take some of our players on. We have some players that found the game with the first demo and have enjoyed all the patches and the game massively changing over time.
No, I love that metaphor, that it's this like interactive experience that you're sharing with people that are potentially going to be playing your game.
Yeah.
Like they're along that ride that you guys are taking.
They see the game changing, which can be emotional for everyone. Like players can get attached to things that you have to change.
Yeah, share the stress a little bit.
So you cannot understate that. So that's really for the developers here. The maybe biggest or one of very few downsides of the whole approach is that you will put out games aren't perfect and are just not done and have blatant flaws about. And you will find players, and some of them will discard you and never look at your game again. And some of them will like the demo for what it is. And we still have players that say, oh, I like the demo so much more. And I'm not sure why they don't just play the demo then and feel the need to let us know. I don't think that's a great thing of them to say to us. But they will do that, and I've heard that hundreds of times. And the demo is still up, and people can still play that. There are, of course, like from the first patch onward, there were people who liked the previous patch better.
But it's also a question of getting used to something new. Like,
yeah, of course. But even like if you have a player base of even just a few hundred people, that's great, or maybe 1,000 people, and you do a change that 90% like, and try to find a thing where 90% of people agree, like a topic or a talking point, it's very difficult. So most changes will be more controversial than 90% to 10%. But even then, 10% of your player base will dislike the change, and they will tell you. And doing creative work, doing new things, in our case, every week, where you know everything you do, every single change in the patch will have at least one person that will hate this change and will give you pushback with like a burning desire to convince you that you have now ruined the game. And this is, I'm like not really exaggerating that much for comedic effect here.
Nope.
It's really intense, and it's really something that needs a lot of like emotional work to be able to still work creatively and still do new things when you know exactly, oh, this will get pushback, because everything will get pushback. You add an accessibility option and some people will complain. You add like improve a graphic, change 5 pixels, and someone wants an option to get the old version back. Like even things that objectively can do zero harm will get pushback. And yeah, that's like difficult. Even I think we are kind of thick-skinned in that regard. I think a lot of so even with the YouTube background and everything, but I think a lot of game developers are very creative people, and creative people tend to be like a bit
good-hearted.
These are very good-hearted people that really care about how people receive their work, and then like I see why not a lot of gamers do the approach, even though I think it's objectively very effective.
One, that you thought through that process, which a lot of people may not necessarily be doing. You thought through how you want to sort of unveil your work, and why you're doing that, for marketing reasons, for feedback reasons, all of those really good reasons. Like you've thought about that. So hopefully if someone is, at a point where maybe they're going to release a demo, at least from this conversation, like, think about why you're doing what you're doing, because that's to have a reason is very good and important. The YouTube channel, how did that sort of prepare you or help out with your development process?
So our thought process was that on the one hand, the YouTube channel is a tool to get a minimum audience. Like if you make a game and really nobody cares, you can make a great game and nobody will know. But with a YouTube channel, you at least have a small to medium audience, or whatever you are able to gather, that you can pitch to, and that is like open to hear what you have to say. And the other option would have been to like don't use the channel as a marketing tool, but rather as a tool to financing that. And we would have been entirely fine doing YouTube instead of like being YouTubers that do some game dev and not being game devs that do some YouTube. Both is amazing. Basically, both are things we would like to do.
To me, it's all part of the same machine, right?
Okay,
yeah.
So like you're saying like that, to have that audience, you can make the greatest game. You can make Elder Scrolls 6, like, but if no one knows that you did it, it doesn't matter, right? Because it's this marketing. There's so much content and information that people are seeing every single minute of the day. The fight, at least, a large portion of that fight is getting eyes on what you're working on. Before we wrap up, a couple fast lightning questions. Okay.
Yes.
So we're looking for short answers. What is the most important marketing part for making a game?
I think it's having a demo. What was your answer?
Giving it to content creators and finding the right content creators to promote it. But that requires a demo, like it requires the game, obviously. So yeah, I think yours is a bit better. So
when making a demo, what part of the game should be the most important? What's the focus? Art, sound, UI, gameplay?
Gameplay, I think, definitely, but the art has to be pretty. Simple maybe, but consistent, kind of pretty a bit.
Yeah, it needs to work as a game, is our philosophy. I know you sometimes can't with, like, if you do a JRPG, this can't happen. But with roguelikes, it just needs to work as a standalone game. What
is your best advice for when someone is super frustrated during the development process?
I'd say do something else that inspires you. Like take a break. Breaks are really important. Yeah.
What's the next step for you guys? What's the next goal?
Yeah, getting the game finished, I think, is the big thing, and then finishing Furcifer, and somewhere between getting a work-life balance that is sustainable.
What advice would you have to someone getting started in game development who doesn't think they can do it?
Well, either start big like we did, like make a huge game that never finishes, but do it for yourself. Like add all the features you want, add everything. It can be a big mess. And just learn, do it all for getting better.
I wanted to say the exact opposite.
No!
That's okay.
Yeah, of course. There are lots of things that can work. So when I think what we did was the big project, and then just being okay with not finishing it, and that worked for us. Doing something really small, like doing a like Arcanite clone or doing Pong or something that is small and fun is immensely motivating. Yeah. So Killboy was the first game we finished. And like we did this so late, and I think it would have been so cool to have a game finished so much earlier, and so possible. You can do a game in 3 days. Do a game jam, get something out. That like the curse is broken.
I love that. I think we'll end with that. The curse has been broken. Well, thank you guys for chatting, and definitely check out Backpack Battles and Furcifer's Fungin. And Killboy has a longer title, and I don't quite remember it.
Yeah, it's Super Killboy 9000, and it's okay if you don't play it. Like
I was going to say 3000, so I was on an earlier version. Super Killboy 9000.
Yeah.
Okay, so check all those out. I'll have those in the description. And thank you guys for chatting.
Yeah, it was nice talking to other game devs. It's cool to talk with other humans once in a while.
Yes, that's maybe the best advice.
Yeah.
Talk to people. Don't just
touch some grass. Get outside occasionally.